Are you ready, Dr. Maharina?
Oh yeah, I don't know what's. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Is there a
I don't have
passcode before we get started, Helen? Is there a passcode for them
No.
to join in?
No, they
No,
should have
right?
gotten a direct email with the link, and then they just click on the link.
Okay,
Okay.
let me just text them.
Go ahead and start, Dr. Mahari.
Okay. Thank you so much for those of you who made it to come today. And the purpose of this presentation by Samahar is that to help the people who are in Ethiopia or anywhere in the world to apply for university degrees, especially bachelor degrees, masters, and PhD. So Samar is going to explain a bit of what she knows about American system, and if there is anything that you are going to ask about the European system that I know of, I will explain. But what I want to stress here is that applying the scholarship is not an easy job. It takes a serious dedication of time and patience. You cannot just apply today and then you expect the result will be tomorrow. No, my experience is that I have applied a lot of applications. I've applied different programs. Like for instance, if I applied for 10 programs or 10 different topics, I might probably get like 3 or 4 out of them. So if you apply for 10 countries in the European Union, you will end up getting at least 2 of them. But it needs dedication and patience. And make sure that whatever they ask you on the application form, the requirements, you need to follow them. Do not depend on your intelligence. That doesn't work. Ask people who passed through the system. Okay, if they ask you to provide motivation letter, make sure you provide motivation letter. If they say 500 words or maybe 1 page, there was at times that when I applied Master of Arts in Peace Building, they asked me to write 100 words on my motivation letter, which is a couple of sentences, not a page, not 2 pages, just 100 words. Why do you want us to give you a scholarship? Why do you want us to fund you for 2 years of your study, paying your tuition fees, your grant? I don't know what you call it in America. We call it bursary or grant here. Like every month they give you money for sustaining you, like paying your food, accommodation, and all that. So why would you think that we need to invest in you only in 100 words, not even a page, not even a half page, just a couple of sentences? So follow the instructions. My advice is just follow the instructions. Just recently, I think a couple of weeks ago, 4 people from Ethiopia came to European Union as a scholarship recipient. 2 of them were in Germany, DAAD program scholarship. 1 is the Netherlands, from the Netherlands, and 1 I think is from Finland. See, so they got 4-person scholarships in the European Union. Why? Because they followed a very strict instructions. So If you don't understand on certain instructions, ask, but do not depend on your intelligence and then apply, and then, because these people receive thousands and thousands of applicants from everywhere in the world. Ask yourself, why do you think Nigerians, this I have to say to Eritreans, listen to this. Why do you think Nigerians, Ghanaians, Kenyans, and Zimbabweans are very successful in securing scholarships? Why not Ethiopians? Why not Eritreans? Ethiopians, fair enough, they get. Why not Eritreans? Because they are very, those, the Ghanaians, the Nigerians, the Kenyans, well, of course, the English language is their maybe second mother tongue, or maybe they could even, we could even argue that they speak English properly, but that's not the excuse. It's that they follow the instructions properly. We don't. So please, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Samhar is also there. She's a wonderful woman. She can coach you, she can direct you. She sacrificed her precious time for you guys. And I'm here also to direct you. But please, if you don't know the instructions, if you don't understand some things on the application form, ask rather than, you know, you don't just do it that way, a typical way of thinking, you know. So I'm here to help my friend Samhar. So I leave the floor to you, Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Mahari. We're being recorded now, Helen, right? Just wanted to check.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen now. And for those of you who joined right now, I put some notes in the chat. And some of you could volunteer. Any new participants, show us Samhar. If you could just tell them to rename themselves, that would be great. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now.
23 people.
Okay. So can you see my presentation?
Yeah. I
Okay.
can see.
Okay. And I'm gonna make this small. How do I move this over here? Okay. So today, like Dr. Mahari mentioned, we're here to talk about college or university admission in the US and scholarship search. And my name again is Semhar Okbazian. I live in the States. I've been working in higher ed for the past how many years now? I even stopped counting for so many years. Before that, I studied, law in Eritrea. I got my first degree in law from Eritrea, came to the US, did 2 LLMs or Master of Laws, and here I am talking to you. Over the past several years, I advised, I don't even know how many, but several thousands of international students and scholars. I work with faculty and staff, like international faculty and staff as well, who come to the US to study, do postdoc research, and also work. So hopefully, yeah, if you could mute yourself, the new person who joined in. Okay, that'd be great. So hopefully, you'll find this presentation resourceful and helpful. I will do my best to go through this as fast as I can so I can answer your questions at the end. I will share these slides so you don't have to take photos or you don't have to take any notes. I'll make it available to you at the end. Okay, so before I begin, I want to show you some numbers, and that's to show you what's the state or the number of Eritrean students in the US. I don't know, many of you might be wondering like how many students, Eritrean students, are currently studying in the US, and I have some statistics to share with you. And these are my links. Let me go into my Not this one. Is it this one? Okay. Can you see my screen now? Dr. Mahari, can you see it?
No.
You can't? Okay. I am sharing that. I don't know why. Let me unshare my screen and then share the whole thing. Maybe that will do it. Stop sharing. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is data from Department of Homeland Security here in the US. If you go to study in the States, see this data mapping tool shows you the data of pretty much every country in the world, number of students and scholars that are studying or working in the States. So if we click here in the continent data, for example, the continent of Africa, I don't know if you can see it, I may have to zoom it. So this is as of March 2021. As you could see here, the number of African students in general in the States is 51,560 active students. If you compare that with Asia, for example, which is the largest continent and the most populous, they have 638,963 active students. So the majority of students in the US are Asians, mostly Chinese and Indian. And if you go here to Latin America, even Latin America has more than us, than Africa, which is 54,735 active students. And North America alone, Canada and Mexico alone, they send 58,728 active students. So if we go closer into, like the data, we start digging more, it breaks it down by, the types of degree programs, male, female, where they are, and you can go into the States and you can see how many students are actually studying in each of these 50 states and the United States. For example, in the state of Maryland, where I live, there are 1,311 African students. And out of those, it's probably, we may have no one from Eritrea or maybe a handful. And to show you that, I'm going to go here to the Open Doors report, which is, an annual statistics that is compiled by IIE, Open Doors. And this report comes from schools that report to Open Doors in terms of how many students from each country and whether or not they're graduate, undergraduate. Okay, I'm gonna have to research, enter Eritrea again. So as you can see here, for some reason it says, there are 43 undergraduate students, 32, 3 non-degree, and 3 OPT, which means they have graduated and they're working in the US. When I saw this number, as I was preparing for this presentation, I didn't expect this many, to be honest, but I am glad at least we have some students, but I don't know if these students actually came from Eritrea or came from Ethiopia. And these numbers represent the number of Eritrean students in the US at this time, but it could be they came 4 years ago or 3 years ago. This is a total number. It doesn't show you when they actually got here. This is not numbers from last year, new arrivals. So I just wanted to share that before I move on to the next part of the presentation. So let me stop sharing and share my presentation again. Okay, let me minimize this. Okay, so you've seen the numbers. It could be real, or it could be an aggregate data from a number of years. But the whole point is compared to other, African countries, you can go and check later on your own time. We are comparing with, the smallest countries, the countries that don't send a lot of international students anyway, because, students tend to stay in their home countries. So we are far, far behind where we need to be. And how do we fix it? We have to educate and share information, and that's the whole purpose of this presentation. So I'll go over the admission process real quick and over the scholarship process, and answer some questions at the end that were submitted prior to this presentation, and then we'll go into Q&A. So as you probably already know, the required documents for admissions include academic, performance or your GPA, your official credentials, which includes your transcript, copies of your, diploma, or if you have a temporary degree, whatever the case may be. And, depending on what degree program you're trying to apply, you may also be required to take some standardized tests like SAT, ACT, GMAT, GRE, LSAT, etc. You'll also be required to write a statement of purpose. Sometimes it's called as motivation letter. Provide English proficiency, proof of English proficiency. It could be a TOEFL exam result or IELTS result. Of course, as part of your academic performance, you have to submit that credential, as I mentioned earlier. Recommendation letters, you'll be asked 2 to 3. I think the majority is 3. They require 3 credentials, 3 recommendation letters. Okay, I think the person who joined now, if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. You'll be asked also writing samples or essays. Some schools do interviews, or if you're applying for PhDs, some schools do ask for a brief proposal of your PhD dissertation, or they would ask you to identify at least, the areas where you want to write about. The other thing that will be asked of you is financial statement or a scholarship application. So if you're applying for a scholarship that is provided by the school, you may or may not need to submit a separate application. Some schools just use your admission application as part of the scholarship review process. Some schools, they want you to fill out a separate application. If you're self-funding yourself, you have to submit financial statement, documenting who's going to pay for your tuition, living expenses, etc. So briefly, before we dive in, when we talk about academic performance, if you have great cumulative GPA, most of the time above 3.5, you have more options, but you still have to prove that you're a great candidate to get into the program, and you have to show them that you can excel. If you don't have a great GPA, if there's something that has affected your grades, could be poverty, illness, or fact that you have to leave your country for various reasons, you have to show it. But make sure to talk about it in an affirmative way, showing that your perseverance despite obstacles. And also elaborate that in your personal statement and the other process that they take you through, whether it's in interviews or writing essays and different things. You may still get in, but also keep in mind that you will need to prove that you're a serious candidate. Make sure that you can handle the new learning environment, because US higher education is very different from how we all learned back home. There will be more reading, interactive learning, class participation, and English proficiency is key to your success. So be prepared that you'll be facing, you might be overwhelmed. Let me just put it that way. You might be overwhelmed the first semester or the first year. It's quite a bit of transition that you have to go through. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when schools review your application, they follow a holistic admission approach. And what that means is that your grades are, in and of themselves are not enough. You may have excellent GPA, but you have to show them your whole self in order for them to, to kind of like what you bring to the table. So make sure that, you state the challenge you overcame, who you are as a person, what you're passionate about, what you plan to do after graduation, etc. So make sure your statement of purpose, resume, recommendation letters, or any essays you write reflect that. And the other thing that to keep in mind is each and every one of us bring a unique background or perspective to the table. So you have to be able to help them identify what that is about you. So what unique perspective are you going to bring to the school or to the degree program? Because schools are constantly looking how they diversify the student population in each of their classrooms or degree programs. So you have to be able to show them like who you are as a person, how unique your background and your perspectives are, and how you can enrich that the degree program for them. So talking about the statement of purpose, I found this very neat description when I was searching online. It's on the Berkeley admissions website. You have the link at the bottom. And it briefly summarizes what a statement of purpose is for you. So the statement of purpose is a piece of document, like Dr. Mahari mentioned. You have to really understand, follow the instructions and see how many words it needs to be, how many pages it's going to be, like make it concise, follow the instructions. But this is, where you show the faculty or the selection committee that you have solid achievements behind you, that you show promise for your success in graduate study. The way you do that is, by kind of compartmentalizing the statement of purpose into different parts. So the first part, or the beginning part of the statement of purpose, should be used to introduce yourself, your interests and motivations, etc. And then after that, summarize your background, like your undergraduate, or if you have a graduate, study, summarize it briefly and tell them what that looked like. And then discuss the relevance of your recent and current activities. I know many of you here have, either stopped going to school or you don't have employment, et cetera, but there is some things that you are doing to survive, to live. Don't be afraid or ashamed of mentioning what you're currently doing to beat the odds, to survive and to make a living. If you're still a refugee in refugee camp, that's fine. Talk about that. As long as you're talking about it from a positive or affirmative way, it's okay. And then elaborate on your academic interests. What do you want to do? What field are you going to study? What made you look into that? What's your ultimate goal? Talk about all of those things. And to help us summarize everything that goes into the statement of purpose, I put all these like 9 areas where I think you need to focus. First thing you need to do is that you have to show confidence. And what I mean by that is that you have to show them that you're self-motivation, you're competent, you can handle the degree program, you have a potential as a graduate, or if you're an undergraduate student. Use active voice. Emphasize everything from a positive perspective. Write an active, not a passive voice. That's something that I notice with a lot of students, is that they use a passive voice to describe pretty much everything on their statement of purpose. Don't do that. Speak directly and use an active voice. So that way, people could believe your story, could hear you and feel for you. And also use examples. Don't say you speak fluent English, when you're writing like, there are issues with your writing, sentence building, like, different things speak in your writing. So make sure that you're using examples, you're demonstrating your competency in the way you write and the way you communicate and the different admission documents or the interview process that you go through. Clarity is another really important thing. Be clear, speak clearly, make an effort to make sure that each statement you make is clear and then they can understand it. And this goes with using active voice and some of the other things that we'll touch upon. But if it's not clear for the average reader, it's not going to be clear for the admission person or the scholarship review committee. So make sure your writing is clear and someone who's reading it for the first time can actually understand each and every sentence that you write. The other thing that I see we have a little bit of a weakness is we tend to write long sentences. Avoid that. Write short sentences. Use simple English. If you write long sentences, go back again and break them down into shorter sentences. Concise writing is better than more words with less clarity and poor organization. The other thing is, of course, you write nicely, but if your information is here and there and people are having a hard time connecting the dots, that could also frustrate the reader. So make sure your writing is focused and each of your statements flow and they make sense. They're not disconnected. So your storytelling could actually be, fluent, like, the way you're telling your story. It's easier for the reader because it's your story, it. But the new person who's looking at your writing, it's their first time. So you have to understand that and you have to make it easy for them to digest the information that you're presenting to them. Couple other things that include, you're in a most of you are in a very unique situation. You're refugees. So leverage your circumstances. Tell them, of course, don't exaggerate because people can spot exaggeration, but tell it, please. Can someone help? Okay. Perfect. So make sure that you tell your story and you can leverage that to your advantage without any exaggeration. And one of the last few things I want to mention is format. Read the instructions and follow them. If it says 500 words, don't exceed 500 words because the admission officers might be checking for compliance. They have resources, they have softwares that can help them to check, if you have exceeded the word limit, and also follow the formatting of the writing. If it says 1 to 2 single space pages, use that. If it says 12 points, use that. Don't use smaller or bigger fonts. So make sure you follow the instructions to the letter. And finally, review and edit. Fix any typos, grammatical and punctuation errors. I tend to see a lot of that, with us. So make sure you avoid all of that by carefully reviewing your documents before you submit your statement of purpose, resume, and all the other documents. If you can, ask someone to look it over for you. And in summary, some helpful tips here. Check online. There are really helpful resources. Google anything that you are not sure about, or if you don't know how to spell a specific word that you want to use, just Google it and then use that. YouTube has several videos on how to write statement of purpose, resume, so many other things. So make sure you utilize that. And the other thing that a lot of people don't use is writing university websites. Like a lot of universities, almost all of them in the US have writing centers. So check the writing centers of the schools that you want to apply to or other schools, and see what resources they have. I've listed here UNC, Chapel Hill, and also Purdue, all Purdue. We don't have time to go through them, but they have a lot of helpful resources. So go there and see how, what resources are available for writing resumes, essays, and things like that, purpose or motivation letter, etc. And one thing I wanted to highlight is it's okay that your, English is not your native language. If you feel comfortable writing in your own native language, feel free to do that, because that's the language that you know from birth. And no one is going to judge you if you do that. So you can write your statement of purpose in your own language, and then you can translate it into English. That helps you to write your story without the need, to translate it as you're thinking about how to write, your statement of purpose. Write in clear and short sentences, like I said. Make sure your idea flows, read it for someone else. Sometimes that helps when you read it out loud, or ask someone to read it for you. And also, like, if you hear how you wrote, sometimes it's easier for you to fix any mistakes or errors that you made when you write your statement of purpose. And finally, review and edit. Write whatever you need to write, set it aside. Sometimes that helps a lot of people, just to stay away from the document for a couple of days, and review it later. So when you come back to whatever you wrote, you're seeing it with a fresh set of eyes, and that helps you to fix it better, or to make it sound and look better. And as I said earlier, ask someone else. It could be a friend, it could be a colleague, it could be a former professor or someone else. And, once you have, at least the first statement of purpose, the first ever you write, nicely done, then you can use it as a template to write future letters. So I'll provide these links for you later, as I said, so you can check them out. Okay. So speaking about standardized tests, these tests are degree specific, degree program specific. So if you're going to law school, you might be asked to take LSAT, like if you're going for the JD program. If you're going to undergrad, they might say you need to take SAT or ACT. If you're going to a business school, they might ask you to take GMAT or GRE. Most of the STEM fields, they require GRE, but they're very specific to the degree program, and some don't require anything. They might only require you to take TOEFL, and some may have exceptions. So it depends on what degree program you're trying to apply. So look up the school policy on these tests and see the minimum test requirements, if there's any exceptions, if the school is flexible. Over the past year, I know that some schools have waived certain tests, particularly the GRE and the SAT, due to COVID lockdown. If that's still the same this year, you can find out. Or, if you want to request a waiver for whatever reason, you can ask and see what the school says about that. If they clearly tell you that there's no exceptions to taking the test, take it. Or leave it. Do not waste your time. So English proficiency, this is one of the most frequently asked area by a lot of you. And, most schools, as we all know, they require TOEFL or IELTS scores as proof of your English proficiency. So that's the number one option. But you can always write to the schools and ask them if you could instead present proof of English proficiency because your degree was offered in English, or the medium of instruction was English. Usually it's the registrar of the school you attended that writes you these letters. If the school accepts it, then you're fine. If not, if they say you still have to take TOEFL or IELTS, I think that's the only option you have, and you have to figure out how you can take that. This is another heavily asked area, official credentials, because a lot of you have trouble getting your documents out of Eritrea. So if you can get your official credentials, at least those of you who studied in Ethiopia and other places, you can arrange for your official transcript to be mailed directly to the university you would like to attend. But if you can't do that, then explain why and see if the university can accept an authenticated copies of what you already have. It could be your copy of your student copy transcript or temporary diplomas, etc. And I know that a lot of you probably don't know this, but sometimes what helps is, depending on your situation, you can also ask former professors, classmates who attended the same degree that you completed, that they know you in person, and that they can attest that you attended whatever degree you attended. And if they know your grades, they can mention that. I know in some cases, universities do accept these affidavit letters in addition to whatever you can provide to them in lieu of your official credentials. But that's the exception. The general principle is that you have to get your official credentials mailed to the school directly by the registrar office of the school you attended. But as a last resort act, you can also offer credential evaluation as a supplement to what I stated above. So if you have credential evaluation done based on the documents you have, you can also try to submit that. So recommendation letters, like I said earlier, you will be asked for 2 to 3 recommendation letters from former professors, colleagues who know you well. Usually the first 2 are from people who actually told you, and the third one could be from someone who knows you well. Piece of advice here is you need to carefully select your recommenders, give them enough time to submit the recommendation letters. These days, once you fill out the admission application and you put their names and your contact information, they will get a link directly sent to their email. So applying early is one of the things you probably need to think about. If you can provide them your resume to jog their memory of your time taking class or working with them. So like I said earlier, it's most recommendation letters are now electronically completed. So make sure to check off the right box when you submit the names of your recommenders. There's a YouTube clip that I found that talks specifically about recommendation letters. So you can check that out later. So writing samples, essays, interviews, schools use these to assess your writing skills, and it can also be used to check your English proficiency level. There's a YouTube clip on that as well. Check it out on your own time, but make sure that your writing is up to standards. That's the reason why we were talking about, writing and how you make your writing excel or meet the minimum standards of the school. If the degree program requires an interview as part of the interview process, practice your English, polish your English, and be prepared to answer questions. Google online, what are the questions that are asked in graduate or undergraduate admissions interviews. Prepare yourself. That's the whole point. And be ready to tell them who you are, what your ambitions are, skills, future plans, etc. Some schools, it may not be part of the admission process, but some schools give you a call even after admission to prepare you for arrival. So you must be able to communicate well with them and understand the message that's being relayed to you. if you are not able to communicate with them, that may have an impact in your admission. I know that from experience. So make sure that when they call you, you're ready to talk to them, and don't be afraid to ask questions if you don't understand anything. You can always ask. So now let's move on to scholarship types. Now I'll quickly go over this. So required documents is pretty much like the admission, requirements, but scholarship, they ask you or they expect you to meet the eligibility criteria. If it says, only students with X, Y, and Z background are eligible, if you don't fit that criteria, then you're not eligible. So make sure that you're eligible first before you apply to any scholarships. Having excellent GPA helps, but that's not the only thing that they look at. They might ask you to write a separate statement of purpose, or why you think you qualify or you deserve to get the scholarship. And good English proficiency or writing is key in securing a scholarship as well. So there are different types of scholarships. Independent funding agencies sometimes provide scholarships. University scholarships are offered by the universities themselves, or it could be a combination. Sometimes you get a scholarship from the university, but that's not enough for you to complete your degree. So you seek out independent agencies or vice versa. Some of the examples of independent funding agencies are the Ford Foundation or the Gate Cambridge Scholarship, Allen Stafford Scholarships, Rhodes Scholarships, or the American Association of University Women Scholarship, which is only available for women from around the world. So when we talk about university scholarships, there are several types of scholarships. Undergraduate scholarships are rare, but depending on the school, they might have a few. They're highly competitive, and there are very few, as I said. A lot of the undergraduate scholarships are to help you partially with your tuition payment, etc. But if you're looking for full ride scholarships, the number of students, colleges and universities is fewer, but there's a lot. So I encourage you, for those of you who are seeking undergraduate, scholarships, do research, and some of the examples are listed here, and I do share on the, the Telegram group as well. So make sure to follow us there. And master's degree programs, some, not all, offer free tuition and pay monthly stipend, particularly in the STEM fields. But they will require you to have at least a 3.8 GPA and ask you to maintain that GPA during the entire period of your master's. PhD fellowships are mostly common in the States, particularly in the sciences, but also in the social science studies as well. And the same thing like masters, they require 3.0 GPA. It covers your tuition and pays you monthly stipend. And a lot of people don't know this, but we also have what's called athletic scholarships in the US. And this is available for athletes who received recognition for their skills, either nationally in their home countries or internationally. And it requires you to maintain a certain GPA. Usually it's a 3.0 GPA each semester. And the types of sports that are eligible for athletic scholarships may differ from school to school, but generally it's for rugby, soccer, basketball players, runners, swimmers, depending on what the school is known for and what teams they have. And speaking of scholarships or financial aid, you might run into these, terms very often when you're looking for scholarships in the US. And these terms are like need blind or need aware, need-based financial aid, merit-based financial aid. And this is what they mean. Basically, the need blind is university doesn't consider your financial situation when deciding whether to admit you as a college student. The majority of college aid will go to students who prove financial need. So that's why, they admit you, and then if you have a need, they'll provide you. But the school may also award scholarships as athletic scholarships, etc., to other people. And need aware is when the university makes most of its admission decisions without considering the student's need for college money. In other words, they may reserve some spots for students who can pay the entire cost of the program without the need of loans, grants, or scholarships. But it doesn't mean that, they don't provide scholarships, but they're just aware. If you are applying to those types of schools and you're telling them, you have what it takes to study there, you have better chances of getting in. Need-based financial aid means, you must apply for a scholarship or ask when you apply for admission. So if you don't ask for it, they wouldn't know. Merit-based financial aid means like when you apply at the time of your application, they might ask you a question. Are you interested in getting merit-based? If you answered yes, then if you have a great GPA, you could be considered for such scholarships. I got this question from someone, and I wanted to talk about it because there's a little bit of confusion. Some students, international students, are not eligible for certain loans and grants that are available for local residents and US citizens. For example, federal loans like FAFSA loans, those are only available for local residents and US citizens. However, international students can apply for private loans through banks, but must have a US citizen co-signer. You can find more information on that link listed there. But this is a possibility. If you have a relative here who is willing to co-sign for you and you're running short on your funding, this is one way to fill the gap. Personal sponsorship through family or friends is also possible. I did get this question as well from one of you. For example, if you have family or friends here in the US who are willing to pitch in and help you with your college or university tuition fees, they can do that. There's a process for it, and each university has instructions on their website, so make sure you check with the university what that process looks like. So some general admission search advice and scholarships as well is that use the Education ASA resources. I think in Atlas they have a Telegram group. I do try to send you the links, the relevant links that are helpful for you, but join that group and try to attend some of the sessions they provide. They provide group advising sessions, and I think they also provide individual, but I don't know how frequent that is. And they also provide English conversation programs, which is really good if you're interested in improving your English proficiency level. Another tip that helped me when I was looking for universities, and that's still the case till today, is at least you need to identify a minimum of 3 colleges or universities. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So diversify the portfolio of schools or degree programs that you want to apply, and also geographically, like apply to US schools, but in your case, there's a lot of issues with coming to the US, particularly visa related. So apply to other schools in other countries as well. And Dr. Mahari could talk about Europe and how easy or easier it might be to get to European schools compared to the US. But it is possible to come to the US as well. Make sure you meet the admission criteria. If you do not, then don't waste your time. Just communicate with the admissions or the international students office if you have any questions. There are people who are ready and available to help people like you, the students who are interested to study at these schools. So make sure you email and get clarification on whatever questions you have. You can write a waiver of the application fee. This is something that a lot of you don't know, but don't get held up by the application fees. Even I did it like a long time ago, when I was not in a position to pay. I worked at the school and the school waived it. And a lot of schools are, especially if they know your circumstances, they're willing to waive it. So make sure to ask for that. Submit all required documents before the deadline. A deadline is a deadline, and US schools are very serious. If it's an online application, you will not find that link. If it's something where you can apply with paper, even if you submit your application, if it's after the deadline, it may not get considered. Don't look to your circumstances and get discouraged. I know it's very difficult being a refugee or in a third country with limited resources, but if there's a will, there's a way. You're the only person who can change your future. So if you're limiting yourself, you may not get anywhere. Just, find a way to make things work for you, and don't be afraid to ask people for help and ask questions. So some general considerations before we move on to Q&A is just wanted to state, when you're looking for schools in the US, keep in mind that there are different types of schools, like private versus public colleges. Private is like it's not owned by the state or the government in the state. Like there's a 2-year college versus a 4-year college. There's religious or secular colleges, like for example, Liberty University or Catholic University or other Christian universities in the States. Also see at the size of the campuses. Are you applying to a large institution, or are you applying to a small institution with a small campus? Is it in the city, or is it in the suburbs, in the rural areas? Is this considered as a research institution, or it's just your typical regular university? And where is it located? Is it in the Midwest and the East Coast, or is it in the West Coast? And you have to read and learn about the school, have a better sense of what the school stands for, their core values, their principles, who the founders are, for the school, for the university in general, but also for the degree program. How did it get started, when, etc. It helps you have a better frame of mind and perspective about things. And for-profit or not for-profit. The reason why I listed that is several years ago, I think the Department of Homeland Security, or ICE, created this fake university and trapped a lot of international students that wanted to take advantage of the benefits that the school was claiming. So be aware of that. And for-profit institutions, I as an international student, I would try to stay away from them if you can, because there's a lot of issues. But that's a general statement. Of course, not all for-profit universities are bad, but I'm just saying, I see issues with some for-profit institutions, and you need to know what type of university you're applying to. The other thing students check, or you should check, is the US and global university ranking. Where is the university in the ranking, this ranking? And sometimes the university could be listed here as in general, but the school, the specific school or the degree program could have a separate, ranking. So check that out as also, because if the school might be ranked, in the 50 or 60 range, but the degree program, could be one of the top degree programs in the US. So if that's the case, it's good for you. Okay. And the other thing to keep in mind is research universities, and these are of course general statements, but I had to mention that to just share with you and also for you to think about. Research universities, usually large institutions, do a lot of research, so they're called research universities. They tend to provide more exposure to research activities, so if you're interested in research, you might want to look at that. That could also mean more access to cutting edge technologies, more grant funding, because more grant funding translates into more graduate fellowships or scholarships and more opportunities. But like I said, these are very general statements, so there's could be a lot of exceptions to that. Private universities, for on the other side, tend to have bigger endowments, money, and that means more scholarship is available to you. They usually have smaller faculty to student ratio and more specialized degree programs. But again, this is a general statement. You just have to look into the university to understand what their endowment size is and how many scholarships they have, etc. Public universities, on the other hand, they're run by state governments. So it's created, for the state, for the students in the state. So you may, there may be less access to scholarship money, but tuition fees are lower at state institution. But international students, something to keep in mind is that you are charged out of state tuition because you don't reside in the US. You don't reside in the state, you're coming from somewhere else. So the tuition you pay is different from the tuition another resident of that state pays. But relatively speaking, compared to private institutions, public universities have lower tuition fees. And they range from big to small universities. Resources and search tools, I'll go through this quickly. Like I said, Education USA in Addis Ababa has, a lot of information. If you live somewhere else, check the Education USA office at that country. There's this wonderful couple of videos prepared by Education USA that talk about the 5 steps to study in the US. Research your options, and also, there's a third one, finance your studies. Please, 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 I cannot stress enough for you to watch these 3 videos because they're highly, highly educational. There's a lot you can gain from those videos. So make sure you check those videos sometime. And the other thing I wanted to share with you is the SAVP school search tool. This is Homeland Security's database that's maintained by the government. It lists all the schools in the US. So when you're looking for a university, for example, on the internet, and you don't know where it is, or you don't know if they accept international students, you come here, search them, or just search by city, and it will give you like how many other schools or universities are in that city, or it can find a school and it can tell you a little bit about them. If they're not listed in this SAVP school search tool, I wouldn't apply to them, because most likely is that they're not certified to bring international students to the US. There are also a lot of these tools to help you find scholarships in the US. As I said, I'm going to share this presentation later in Word format, so you can just click on those links to understand what they are. But they're all of them, I think at least the first 3 or 4 are databases where you can just search scholarships in the States. Briefly going over visa interview. I know a lot of you, the deadline for a lot of degree programs has already passed, but if there's anyone here who is planning to apply for a visa, check out the 10 points to remember when applying for a student visa. It's prepared by NAFSA, the National Association of Foreign Student Advisors. And this particular link, I participated in creating this document. So check that and get the helpful information that we prepared for you. Under US law, people who apply for F1 or J1 student visas are viewed as intending immigrants. So you have to maintain a non-immigrant intent and be prepared to show your reasons for that, what your plan is after graduation, etc. To talk about that, I know for refugees, it's very difficult to meet that requirement because you're in a third country. You've left your home country, and you may or may not want to go back after you complete your studies. So how do you overcome that question about non-immigrant intent? That's the biggest, or the most challenging question that you guys have to answer. So to talk about that, I will invite Mutasim Ali, who is Sudanese, I think Sudanese or South Sudanese refugee who lived in Israel as a refugee and he managed to come on a scholarship, and he's currently studying, or I think he graduated recently at George Washington University. He completed his LLM, Master of Laws. He has agreed to speak with you, so stay tuned. I'll let you know when he will meet with you. I'll send an invite, and you get to ask him some of the questions you have. I think that's the best thing I could do, because I have not lived the life that most of you are living. So it might be difficult for me to answer that question, but he can tell you how he was able to overcome it. So I'm going to go over some questions that were submitted to me prior to this presentation, and then I'll open it, the stage for Q&A. Okay, so first question that I was asked was, what about the F1 visa ban, or the visa ban in the new Biden administration? I have a good news for you. The travel ban 4.0 in Eritrea ended back on January 20, 2021. And that banned, travel from Eritrea using like other non-immigrant statuses, but the F1 student or J1 visitor, J1 worker was not listed in those categories. But anyway, that's no longer the case now. The future remains to be seen. It's expected that the Biden administration is going to have favorable policies towards refugees and international students. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Travel document versus passport. I received a lot of questions, like, for example, can I get admitted with a travel document or without one? Do I need to have a passport? What if I can't get a passport? These are like very general questions. I know that most schools at the time of application, I don't think you're required to show them travel document. If that's not the case, let me know. But I'm ready to ask that question. I just got into a group of professionals, enrollment management professionals, and I'm ready to email them that question. And any questions you have around passports and travel documents for admission purposes, you can let me know. But the general answer that I have prepared here for you is that you are eligible for a travel document if you are a refugee and you're registered with the United Nations, UNHCR. You are eligible for a travel document. You just have to figure out how to get it. And that's listed in the 1951 Geneva Convention on Travel Document for Refugees. We have the articles here. Basically, the UN recognized that you need travel document in order for you to move from one place to another. So you are eligible for it, but you just have to work with people or other students that have gone through the process, check with them and apply for one. And then once you have that, at some point you might be able to convert it to an emergency travel passport, a temporary travel passport that's issued by the country where you're living at. I also got this question, like master's or PhD. I'm not decided. What can you advise me? There are a few, online articles on the benefits or the pros and cons of moving directly from undergrad straight to PhD. So check them out and read a little bit about it. But it is possible, particularly in the STEM fields, for you to move from, if you have an undergrad degree, you could apply straight to PhD. So there's that possibility, and you should consider that if that's going to be your ultimate goal. But do, research it, read more about it, contact the school, understand what it entails before you begin the process. And one of the questions I would ask if you were to apply to a PhD program from undergrad is, if something happens, God forbid, and you're not interested anymore to complete your PhD, would you be eligible to get a master's and walk away with it? So that's something to keep in mind. Gap on your resume or age. It really depends on the degree program or the scholarship, whatever scholarship you're applying. If there's an age limit, then you may not be eligible if you have, past that age limit. But if there's no age limit, there's no like general age limit to study in the States. You can continue school until you die. So that's all I can say, but it's a degree program specific. If there's a gap in your resume, for example, if you graduated and you're working and now all of a sudden you find yourself in refugee status and you're not working, you just have to explain yourself why the gap and what you're doing to fix it. Yeah, another question that I was asked was, how do we identify genuine and fake scholarship posts? My advice to you is avoid websites that have a lot of ads, but if you do that, then you might not be able to see anything. A lot of the scholarships are, there are a lot of organizations or companies or people that post scholarships on their own websites, and they're buried with a ton of advertisements. So make sure you scroll down to go through the content. But what I personally would do is, if they're talking about a specific university, just Google that university and that particular program and try to read up about the scholarship from that institution instead of just relying on this other website, because you don't know what that website is saying. You don't know if it's official. Just double check that information by going to the university website instead. And if you have any questions, contact the admissions office, the financial aid office, because they can provide you the most accurate information. There's a lot of scam out there. Don't fall for any, particularly those that ask you for your personal information, or that ask you to pay a certain amount of money to get a scholarship or to secure an admission spot. Stay away from those. Application timing. Yeah, when is the best time to submit application? As soon as the application opens. Same thing with scholarships. So delaying is, you're delaying, if you delay submitting your application, then your recommenders will get the links later, and then they might miss the deadline. So you don't want that to happen. Apply early. That's the advice for you. The same thing with the scholarships. Sooner is always the best. Required documents for high school grads and bachelor incompletes. So if you're still in school, in high school, haven't finished 12th grade, what are the required documents? Finish your 12th grade first. If you don't, you will not meet the admission eligibility criteria. If you have not completed your bachelor's, you would probably have to use your high school documents, because you are incomplete, but you can send your transcript, a copy of your transcript to the school showing that you were in the middle of a bachelor's degree and you stopped for whatever reason. And the other thing is, if you don't have your copy of your diploma, then if you don't have anything to show, you may have to start from scratch, unless of course you can find copies from back home, and some people can send it to you. The other interesting question, or really good question, is that if you had applied before and you were denied for visa due to insufficient ties to your home country because you're in a third country, how do you overcome this in the future? When you apply for a visa, one thing to keep in mind is, if the consular officer tells you that you are denied, ask them for the reasons in writing. They are required by law to give it to you. So you have it in writing and try to understand what the reasons are. Usually, they will list a specific immigration provision. You can Google that. There's a lot of information on Google. So that way, next time you apply, how you can overcome that. But part of those questions, I think, might be answered when we talk to Mutasim Ali. He might be able to tell you how he was able to overcome some of the questions, the hard questions that are asked during a visa interview. There's no limit to the number of times you can apply for a visa. Another piece of advice is, be forthcoming when you reapply regarding why you were denied the first time, because it's in your record. They know how you responded, what questions you were asked, etc. So you have to be honest and frank about, the past. And now I'll open it to question and answer. So I'll stop sharing my screen and you can ask questions. So Dr. Mahari, the floor is yours. You're gonna have to help me. Did you guys hear all of that clearly and nicely?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So if you have any questions, I guess, if you can chat, like put something on the chat box, then we can ask you to unmute yourself and ask the question. Now, I'm so sorry if I was like fast or if there's any part of my presentation that you did not understand. This is the time for you to ask. I did ask if I could, if you want me to present in English or in Tigrinya, but the consensus was that I go with English, but I'm happy to, you know, switch back to Tigrinya now if you need me to. Dr. Mahari, are you there? Yeah, so we'll share the documents later. So anyone has any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay. Hi, Milan.
first of
Milan,
all-
right?
Yeah, I'm Mila.
Okay. Go ahead, Milan.
Thank you so much. And
welcome.
what I want to ask is regarding, can you switch from admission to scholarship once you arrive in the university?
Explain that. What do you mean?
For instance, I have an admission to one US college or European college.
Mhm.
And then once I arrive there, can I switch into scholarship?
Oh, I see. Okay. So
Either
if-
way.
yeah. So if you go to the university or go to the country in other status, can I go to school and utilize that scholarship or apply for a scholarship? Is that your question? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about the US, it depends on what visa status you will enter. If you enter as a green card holder, it's better because you come here and you can do whatever. If you came as a tourist or other non-immigrant status, you may have to change your status to an F1 student. So talk to the Office of International Services or International Students and ask them to provide you some guidance on how you can switch your status once you're in the country. That's the general advice for you, because I don't have the details. I cannot advise without the details.
Okay.
Yeah. Was that clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But you can ask in the group if you have like a specific question. I'm happy to talk to you in private.
Okay. It's just I have an issue. I am a mother and I had an admission to German university.
Mhm.
And I already finished my first semester and I'm on my way to the second semester. And when I applied for visa, the embassy rejected my daughter because you have to go there, you have to get your residence permit, and then you can apply for her. But someone else went to Finland with her daughter, like the same case with me. And even someone else, because she had passport, not travel document, she was able to go for master's with her kid. And there are certain issues that we face.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're talking about that, because that's another question I forgot to put on the presentation is dependents or family members, can you take them? So if you're talking about the US, if you are coming on a scholarship, you know, unless you can somehow manage to find the funding needed for your child or your spouse, it may be difficult for you to travel together. The other thing to keep in mind is, you know, you still have to show your non-immigrant intent. And the way people do it is by leaving their family back. That's one way. You can say, well, my family is here, I'm coming back to them. So, but that doesn't mean that you cannot bring them on a later date, like at a later time. So you come here on an F1 visa, and then you save a little bit of money to show to the Office of International Services, you know, to bring your child or your spouse. And then we can send them the necessary documentation for them to apply for a visa. It all boils down to the visa for you guys, because you're not residents or permanent residents of the countries that you're living in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else has a question?
There's 2 questions in the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to read them now. I think the first question, Dr. Mahari could probably answer that because it relates to Europe. Second question is, yeah, it looks like the person, Alim, I think Alim asked, for the program, apply scholarship. I'm a refugee, I don't have documents. My transcript of 4 years in theology and 2 years of philosophy from Asmara. So if you don't have your documents, if you're referring to the official transcript or any documents at all, it may be difficult for you to apply to US schools because you don't have anything to show. You have to give them at least something in order for them to understand or to see that you went to school in Eritrea and you have graduated, you have completed your studies, and you know, a document that shows your GPA. If you don't have anything to show, then that could be problematic. So you may have to look for schools, yeah, maybe start from a bachelor's again. And there's no shame in that. You know, I know a lot of people who have graduated back home and they came here and they started fresh. So it's, you know, I just want you to know that there's no shame in starting from scratch because it's life, and you know, your situation it is what it is. You cannot change it if you can't. So you may have to start fresh. But if you have like a student copy of your transcript, it may not be the official, the final thing that comes from the registrar. You know, you could use that, whatever you have. You can get it, like you can do credential evaluation, or you can just submit it as it is and see if the school would accept it. Most schools will insist that, you know, the official documents be sent to them anyway, straight from the university you attended. But if you can't do that and you explain your current situation, you know, if they're lenient, they might make an exception and you might be able to get to the school.
Your next question is actually from Musia. Musia, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Hello, Musia.
Samar, can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have my transcript of philosophy and theology, but I could not get the certificate of BA degree because of the
You're muted. I can't hear anything. Can you hear him, Helen?
No, you have to
Can I
unmute
speak now?
yourself. Is this
Can I
Alam?
speak now?
Are you, is it Alam?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying to you, I do have my transcript of philosophy and theology
Okay.
with
So
me,
you want to know
but I
if
do
you
not
if
have
you
the.
could.
Yeah, can I apply with these documents?
So is that for a bachelor's degree? Do you have your transcript for a bachelor's degree? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I do have 4 years of
Yeah.
bachelor degree
If you
transcript.
have a bachelor's degree in whatever, it doesn't matter what major you completed in, you can certainly use that
Yeah,
to apply for a master's degree level education or even a PhD. You know, you just have to just make sure that you know
especially
you're
for
meeting all the eligibility criteria. If it says you have to have a bachelor's in this, you know, whatever field, and
Yeah.
if that's not the field you completed your bachelor's in, then that may be problematic. But if it doesn't, you know, if the program doesn't care what your bachelor's degree was in, you could still use that to apply for a master's or PhD.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, there was a question about some European countries as to whether they accept this refugee travel documents or not. I want to tell you this. There was one case, an Ethiopian refugee living in Cairo, Egypt. He applied for scholarships in the Netherlands and they got at Utrecht University. So they accepted him, but then there was some sort of this kind of problem. But then the UNHCR office in Cairo supported his application and convinced the embassy in Cairo of the Dutch embassy in Cairo. So what this refugee did was actually contact the university who accepted him or admitted him, that is University of Utrecht. They wrote him a letter to say, well, we will fund the studies and everything. And then he took that letter to the UNHCR, and the UNHCR in Cairo issued him a travel document, refugee travel document, the 1951 convention by Egyptian government. So the UNHCR got that admission letter from Utrecht University in the Netherlands and went with him to Dutch embassy in Cairo and explained the situation. Look, this is a refugee from Ethiopia living in Cairo for such year. So he was lucky to get accepted at the Netherlands, one of the university. So allow him to give him a visa. So in that situation, he got a visa. He came to the Netherlands and has been studying since using the travel document. So there are some ways to manipulate this. As long as you got the admission from the university, whether it's in Italy or in Finland or in Germany, whatever, if the embassy in Ethiopia or wherever you are refused your visa, then you approach the UNHCR in Addis or maybe I don't know, in Khartoum, wherever you are, and then explain to the UNHCR office there, look, here is the letter of admission. So I need your support. So the UNHCR has a responsibility. Once you are a recognized refugee in those countries, in one of those African states, the UNHCR has a mandate to take a full responsibility to assist those refugees, unlike in Europe or in America or in other parts of the world. The UNHCR mandate in Africa is completely different than the mandate that we have in Europe here with the UNHCR responsibility. So every continent has different mandates. The UNHCR mandate in Asia, the UNHCR mandate in Latin America, in US, Canada, and in Europe. The UNHCR don't have power, for instance, in Europe, because the member states have more power to control the UNHCR, whereas in Africa, the UNHCR has more power. So it's advisable, once you get the admission letter from whatever university you applied, approach the embassies, whatever you wanted to go to study. So if you have any question, I'm here to help. Thank you.
Okay, I think there's, Fevin also asked a similar question at the bottom here. Says, is it possible to complete the admission using travel document? And I would like to answer that question as yes, but I don't know if you heard me talk about it earlier. I'm about to ask that question to a large group of admission officers in the US to have a better understanding of what their practices are in terms of the documents that they require for refugees, specifically for refugee students. Whether, you at the time of admission, in my opinion, it doesn't make any difference if you have a passport or not, because you're just applying. But I can get back to you on the group if you're in the Eritrean Students Network on Telegram app. I can get back to you once I have an answer, but I would like to think that a travel document should be an acceptable form of identification at the time of admission. And then, like Dr. Mahari mentioned, once you get admitted and you have a scholarship and you're ready to apply for visa, you can certainly approach the UNHCR and ask for their assistance and to try to convert your travel document into the temporary passport or emergency travel passport.
Milan has her hand raised.
Say that again.
Milan has her hand raised.
Yeah, I can barely hear you, Helen. Your mic is.
Yeah. I said Milan has her hand raised. So, if Milan, you have another question?
Yeah, it's actually not a question, but a comment. You have told us that the thing is that there's a difference between the university and the embassy. Most of the universities, they do accept to apply using travel documents, but when you go to the embassy, that's another story. That's when they tell you that travel documents are not, or you're not eligible to apply with travel documents. That's the issue right now. And the UNHCR in Ethiopia, they are not willing to help Eritreans at all. They give you or they issue the travel document after you get the admission or the scholarship, but they are not willing, to see you success. Whether you go or not, that's your business. They don't do anything with us. That's what I want to say to Dr. Mahari.
Okay, now for instance, which country you said in Europe? Which country?
Germany, for instance.
Germany.
Right now, it's accepting. For about 1 year, they were like we had our admissions. We went to the embassy, and oh, sorry. Sorry. We had our admissions and we went to the embassy. We were like 4 or 5 people. And for 1 year, they were like, we are talking to the UNHCR. We are going to decide soon. One thing they raised as an issue was the travel document is only valid for 2 years, the UNHCR, which they give us. And they were like, it's too short. It should have been like 5 years, like the Ugandan travel documents. Another issue is most of you guys, you go there and you don't come back. That was another issue. Like, it's a way for you guys to go out of Ethiopia and that's it. You don't come back. That's what they said. But after so much effort and so much talking, they allowed us to accept the travel documents right now. But it takes a lot of time. So that's the issue. The universities, they do accept us, but the embassies, they do have their own policies,
Okay, just a question. Like when you said Germany, because I mean, what sort of scholarship did you have? Did you apply through DAAD scholarships or individual universities? I just want to know.
It's a, yeah, it's a, mine is an individual university. There was also
Uh-huh.
another person who applied for that. So yeah, she is the first person actually to go from Ethiopia right now after
So
1 year.
was she successful through applying that?
Yeah, she was successful and she went to the embassy. They rejected her first time. And then
Yeah.
after a year, they have accepted the travel document right now.
Yeah, but the bottom line is that that is the biggest scholarship giver, yeah, than those individual universities. So the bottom line is that does that refuse refugees with travel documents to apply? Yes or no?
Right now, no.
Exactly. So you have got no problem applying them.
What did you say? Sorry.
I mean, that means you have got no problem in applying to any scholarships in Germany because every scholarship in Germany is controlled by that. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they refused refugees who have travel documents to apply through that system, yes, we can talk, well, there is a problem. But as long as there is no problem in applying to that scholarships using travel documents, go ahead and apply. Whether the German embassy in Ethiopia refuse you or not, that's a completely different story. But then once you get the admission, once that issue you, like your friend was issued a scholarship. First, she was refused, but then at the end of the day, she came to Germany, right?
Yeah. The issue is
Yeah.
with the embassies.
Yeah,
It's
so
not. The point is, you say the Egyptian UNHCR helped the guy to go to the Dutch embassy, but the
that's a different
UNHCR
country.
here, yeah,
Yeah,
the countries are different. Yeah, the UNHCR, but still the UNHCR is one worldwide organization, right? And it should be advocating for all of us equally. But we are here, and the UNHCR is not advocating enough for us. That's the point.
yeah, well, you can say that, but the thing is this, you see, every UNHCR is different, okay? It depends. I mean, UNHCR is a political organ, you must understand. So UNHCR in Ethiopia may not probably like Eritreans to leave Ethiopia to it. You know, I don't want to talk the political aspect of it. That's number one. Number two, the representative of the UNHCR in Addis should also be another factor. He could be somebody who is against Eritrean. Again, I don't want to speculate. So it depends of the UNHCR staff in Ethiopia, because could be somebody else. Maybe he might be a Djiboutian UNHCR representative in Ethiopia who don't like Eritreans, period. He's not going to help you. Period. I mean, it's a political game. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a political organ, UNHCR by itself. So you can't say that, oh, well, UNHCR is one organization all over the world, but then the UNHCR representative in Ethiopia is not helping us. It's true. He might not help you, but then you should try in one way or the other. But I'm just trying to explain to you that there is a political aspect of it as well. But no matter what, apply, because if dad accepted your application for scholarships, the German embassy will never say no to you. They might say, try again later, but they will accept you because dad is a government. Huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the next question is from Ricardo Cardone. I think he wants to ask this question on his own.
No, I just want to say, this discussion, should be discussed bilaterally. I don't think this discussion of the power of UNHCR is important to all of us. We know what they have different mandates, it's clear. This is a particular situation. We are discussing about the future of our kids in general. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do believe this should be dealt but in bilateral, but then it's one of the challenges that the refugees are facing in Ethiopia and in some parts of Africa. So it's to me, it's a very important question, and we addressed it effectively. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add to that, to what Dr. Mahari and Milan stated, that the whole purpose of this gathering and events like this in the future going forward is to hear those issues from the students. What are they facing? And we're all we support you in your endeavors, and I'm happy to speak for myself. I'm happy to write or email to UNHCR offices, in other parts, because I know UNHCR wants to help refugee students, wants to create opportunities for them, or at least, that's what they say, to better themselves, to take advantage of educational opportunities in other parts of the world. Yes, you're refugees, but you're not condemned to live, in Ethiopia or in other parts of the world, and you're not going to leave. I don't think that's the perspective of UNHCR, or it should be their stand. So share those experiences, and I'm happy to email to whomever who needs to hear this. We have several contacts of UNHCR here or in Europe. Like I said, and I'm happy to email people to just at least bring the awareness of what's going on and what challenges students, refugee students in particular, are facing when they're trying to apply for visa to take advantage of the admission and scholarship opportunities they get overseas.
There's several people asking for direct support. So somehow if you can maybe share your email and your Telegram and
Sure. So the direct support that I'm providing to people is on the group. Unfortunately, I'm just one person, and I have a busy life. I'm a mom, and I have a full-time job, so it's very difficult for me to provide you a one-on-one advice or answer questions or guide you through your scholarship or admission searches. I know a lot of you have been asking me, can you help me get a scholarship for this, scholarship for that? Unfortunately, my hands are tied. I cannot, help people on an individual level. But if you want to, take advantage of the information that we share, please join the Telegram app. It's called Eritrean Students Network. So if you search us in the Telegram app, for those of you who don't have Telegram, it's like WhatsApp. You just download it on your phone, and you can search for groups on Telegram. So look us up, Eritrean Students Network. Feel free to join that group so you can hear the different topics we discuss and questions we answer, and links of scholarships that we share there. So that's what I can say. If you have any like specific help, you can just contact me there. Like you can send me a private message there, and I can help you connect with resources or people. But you have to understand that I have very limited time and during the day, because I'm very busy. So as long as you keep that at the back of your mind, I think that would be fine. And I see here a question from Musi, a direct question that came to me, and he is asking two questions. Where do you state the codes for your not so good GPA? Is it in the statement of purpose? And the answer to that is yes. You have to indicate that on your statement of purpose. If one of the admission criteria is GPA above 3.0 and your GPA is below that, is there a probability accepting you as a candidate after writing the reason for your not so good GPA? or the eligibility criteria is final all the time. Okay, so that depends on the school. So if you have, let's say 2.8 or 2.9 and the admission criteria states that you have at least 3.0, or it could be below that, but you have good reasons why your GPA is not so great, but otherwise you have good potential, you're a serious candidate, and you're interested and you're passionate about the degree major, et cetera, you can write to the school and see how they take it. So I cannot say, well, most admission requirements are final. Generally, that's the reason why they have to tell you this is what you should have. But if you think you're eligible, you can, they should waive that requirement for you. You can write to them and see how they respond. And you can also email, like I said earlier, you can email the Office of International Services or the admission office because you're applying for a school. Usually the admission officers, they communicate pretty fast. They can get back to you. I don't see an app called Mail. You could try searching. Oops, sorry. So you could just, write to them and see how they respond. That's basically what I would like to say. Okay. If there is no other question, I don't see any other question on my end. Is there any on your end, Helen, or?
No, I think
Okay.
we can take one last question. If there's no more questions, then we can wrap up.
Okay. So this is the last call. If you have any questions, raise your hand or just put something on the chat so we can answer that. Okay. I have this question that was submitted to me through the Telegram app right now. And the question reads as follows, says, what if our documents are not authenticated? Does it create any problems at the embassy? So the embassy, the embassy's job is not to screen you for admission or for compliance of your documents. If you're admitted already by the school and you have the scholarship, the presumption is that you have met the requirements for admission purposes. But they do sometimes tend to ask. So they ask you because they want to make sure that you're a genuine student. But I don't think they go into details like, is your document authenticated or not? So my personal opinion is that they don't ask that question. But if you do get that question and your documents are not authenticated, you can just say they're not authenticated, but they're genuine. When you go and check that document I linked up earlier on the 10 points to remember at the time of visa application, we talk about that and confidence. I cannot, highlight enough that confidence is everything. Of course, you have to prepare for all the questions, but you have to, don't be nervous when you go to the visa interview. Show that you're confident, speak fluently. Less is more. Just answer the question shortly. The short response. Don't provide information that you are not asked about. Sometimes the problem comes, like they ask you one question and you go on, you try to provide them more context. And then that, develops other questions. So you don't want to go, into further details or provide more information than it's been asked.
Okay, there's another question from Mehratab Mangustav.
Yeah, Mehratab. So his question is, I'm a student somewhere in Ethiopia, in Tigray, a first-year student, and so how do I get an American scholarship? Just like everybody else, if you're a first-year student, what's your purpose? Are you planning to apply for a master's, or are you planning to apply for a bachelor's just to continue your education? So once you identify that, if you're trying to apply as a transfer student, using whatever credits you have already accumulated, you can certainly apply. The application requirements there's no they're all the same, whether you have completed first year or 4 years or 0 years. is the same. You just have to email the admission office and to try to understand what you need to do to get the application going.
There's another
Well,
question from Stephen Ali.
yeah, well, you need to have admission first before you apply for scholarship. So the question is it advisable to apply for admission or scholarship? Well, it's both, actually, like if you think about it. So you get an admission, like I said, have a set of maybe 3, maybe 4 maximum universities that you want to apply to those. And if they provide scholarship, full-ride scholarship or partial scholarship, apply to the scholarships provided by the universities themselves. If you think you need additional funding, then at the same time, you can apply to these other external funding agencies, and you can have it go, parallel to each other. So if you get admitted, you see how much you get from the school, and if you have, if you're short, you can just, have the external scholarship be a supplement to whatever amount you get from the schools. So it really depends, but in my opinion, I would get an admission first and then apply for a scholarship, or apply to admission for admission, and at the same time apply for a scholarship. I wouldn't do it otherwise.
Okay. Another question from Bilal Hassan.
IELTS is also accepted by a lot of schools here in the US as well. So if you don't have TOEFL, you can you can submit the IELTS. Just make sure what the minimum score the degree program requires, and if you have that, if you could meet or exceed the minimum requirement, then you can submit that. But it's recognized in the US as well, not just Europe.
Okay, and there was one participant who raised their hand, but I don't know who you are because you still come up as participant. So
yeah, he logged in probably as me.
all right. All right, I don't think there's any other questions.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for your participation today, and I hope you found this presentation helpful. I will share the PowerPoint slides later in the Telegram group, so make sure to check that. And if you have any questions, you can answer. You can put your questions there. Are you trying to ask a question?
Yeah, because the connection here was interrupted.
Okay.
In the middle. May I ask now?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. First of all, thank you, and I'm happy to hear your golden words. I've heard each and every year words, Ms. Samar. So thank you.
Thank you.
My question is this: as Million has already asked one of them. Generally, I want to ask that how much the probability of the getting a scholarship, or how much the probability of the success in US is in US, because we have had so many links, so many admissions, so many scholarships, but I remember that I had the admission in some US college when I was undergraduated. But unfortunately, at the last interview, I couldn't get my F1 visa because there is a way, but lastly, there is no it is anyway anti-Africans, like as the Millions said, just open the way. But it is not open till the end, because I don't have any reason of I don't think that it was the shortcoming of mine, because I did my best during that preparation. I got my all documents from that college, which accepted me. But lastly, at the interview of here in the embassy of USA, it disapproved and rejected me. So I'm hopeless to apply, especially in USA. So I just want to ask you that how much the probability of accepting of African students there in USA. Just I'm on the way to apply also, even though my laissez-passer or travel document is invalid, I may update if so possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So he asked a really good question, and that's the main reason why I actually do what I do with African students, Eritrean students in general, to try to change the numbers. Like I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, the number of African students in the US compared to other continents is is very small. It's a drop in the ocean, in my opinion, because Africa is the second most populous continent in the world, but the numbers are very small. Like Latin America and North America sends more students than Africa, which is very sad in my opinion. So to answer your question, yes, sometimes people do get denied a visa, and it could be several things. It just depends on who you are as a person, what you applied for, and how you were treated at the embassy, how you presented yourself, what kind of questions you get asked, how you responded to them. So it could be several things. So I can, I'm happy to speak with you privately. You can contact me using the Telegram app if you're interested in trying again. But to answer your question about the general probability of getting admitted, that's a really good question. I want you to know that your numbers are low. African students, Eritrean students in particular, your numbers are very, very low in the US. And US institutions need you because you're very rare. You're a very rare commodity in US higher education. So schools need you. If very qualified Eritrean students apply to their schools, they're happy. Schools like to get students from countries that rarely send their students to the States. So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, because you come from a unique country. You come, you have a unique background, especially if you're refugees. Most schools don't get refugee admissions. That's another area or territory that I'm trying to explore and research more and learn more how institutions see refugee students. But the general tendency in the US, hopefully, for the next 4 years, is that, if this administration comes up with very favorable refugee policies or international education policies like they have promised, is that we will see more approvals than denials. But if you get denied for whatever reason, don't get discouraged. You can try again. There's no limit in the number of times you can apply for a visa, to a student visa, to come to the States as a student. That's what I would like to say. So try, and if you get denied and you think it's not, the reason that they are giving you is not appropriate, contact me, let me know. I'm happy to use my resources and get in touch with people and try to facilitate, and also reach out to the schools. Of course, the schools cannot force, the State Department or the consular officer, because they have total discretion. They have the freedom to decide whatever way they can approve or deny your visa application. But at the same time, if you have a full scholarship and admission to a particular program and you are getting denied, the US is losing someone who could be a valuable member of a particular higher education. So we have more reasons to advocate on your behalf. The school has more reasons. I didn't talk about my personal experience, but I think this is the right time to share briefly about how many times I tried to come to the US before I finally succeeded. So when I was in Eritrea, and this was back in the early 2000s, I applied like I graduated from law school there. I had the top GPA. I was the medalist, I graduated with the medal. And I was a graduate assistant or a junior lecturer, you could say, at the University of Asmara, Faculty of Law. And then when I was working there, I would apply to different scholarships, different universities. I had almost 10 different admissions from different parts of the world, US and other countries, European and other countries included. I would get one scholarship after another, one scholarship after another, and I would get denied. So, I could have lost hope and just forget everything. But I didn't want to, and thankfully, I stayed persistent and I applied. And by the time I got to the visa interview, it was a lucky day for me, I guess. I got my visa. But if I was, at that point, if I were denied, I don't think I would have stopped, because if you have a goal, you just have to keep pushing and keep pushing. And then one day you might get it. So that's the advice for all of you, is that if you want to come to the US and you see, a great potential, and you get a good scholarship, do whatever you need to do. Talk to as many people, ask for help, and people to advocate on your behalf before you give up. Don't just simply give up and say, well, I don't think I will leave. But the other thing that, like I mentioned earlier, is that don't just apply to US schools. If you apply to European universities and you get admitted and you get a good scholarship, you can go to European countries and then you can try again from Europe. There's no limit in the number of times you can apply for a scholarship, and you can apply, for a visa. You can apply for a visa from overseas, from wherever you are now, or you can apply, from another third country that you go to. The key is don't lose hope. Don't stop trying. That's what I advise to all of you. But you're just like any other international student who's applying for admission and scholarship. If you ask me, what's the probability? You just have to be, your application has to be competitive. Like, you have to write a really good statement of purpose, ask people to help you review it, enhance it, review, edit, make some changes. The same thing with your resume. Follow the instructions. Have a really nicely done resume. I'll try to bring someone to talk to you about that. By the way, I didn't mention it, but I'm going to try to bring a multilingual writing specialist from a university here in the States to talk to you about how to write a resume and statement of purpose, etc. So make sure to attend to those sessions. It's going to be somewhere in early in summer, sometime in June or July. We will have a few events just talking about writing. So make sure to attend, and don't give up hope. Apply. But don't just apply. Make sure your documents are in a good format and following all the instructions when you apply. I gave you a long answer, but I hope that provided you some context.
I think he's frozen. But the last question is someone asking another question saying, I want to make sure if I can apply without a passport and travel with the US, into the US with the conventional travel documents.
Okay, we try to answer that question. You will need some kind of a passport to travel into the US. So if you have a travel document, you will need to convert that to the temporary travel passport that's issued by the country you're living in. In Ethiopia, I know students who converted the UN travel document into that 1 year or 2 year long. I think it's usually issued for a year. Emergency travel passport, and you leave. You could probably use that, but we have already covered it. If there's anyone who have tried that but was denied, let me know.
Okay, great. I think we could wrap up. I think people are leaving now.
Okay, yeah. Oh, it's 8:20, 1 hour and 20 minutes, 2 hours. Oh, So sorry. Anyway, like I said, thank you so much for tuning in, asking questions and participating. I hope you found the presentation helpful. We'll try to share the links with all of you later on the Telegram app. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. Thank you, everyone. And a shout out to Helen. A lot of you don't know Helen, but she is one of the organizers of this event. And thank you. I would like to say heartfelt thanks to Helen and also Dr. Mahari for his participation today.
Repeat the Telegram group one more time.
Yeah, the Telegram group is Eritrean Students Network. It's Eritrean Students Network.
All right.
Okay, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Take care. You can stop the recording now. Thank you. Thank you, Samsung.